Nothing gets better. So enjoy what you have. You're going to get angry and you're going to get sad, but nothing gets better. So enjoy what you have. Find something to look forward to at the end of the world. You're going to get angry and you're going to get hurt, but find something to look forward to at the end of the world. My name is Harry Navel. Welcome along to the Gay and Hairy podcast.
Oh, I know, I'm Gay Pigeon. Now, that seems contradictory.
Does it?
Yeah, because he's like, or she is like, nothing gets better, but find something to look forward to. Okay.
He's saying nothing gets better, but enjoy what you have.
But then he also says, but find something to look forward to. But if nothing gets better and you're in a terrible place, then you don't have anything to look forward to. Because it's not going to get better. So if you're in a horrific situation and you can't look forward to anything there because nothing gets better. Now, if he said, sometimes things do get better, but just proceed as if things probably won't get better right now.
Well, maybe he's just offering a small amount of, broad advice in this time when everything is so uncertain.
Who was that?
Some broad advice.
Who was
to find enjoyment in the small things. That was Liam Hegarty's favorite group, CD160 listener Liam Hegarty's favorite group, the Smith Street Band, which I believe is a Melbourne-based rock group with punk rock roots that might have crossed paths with Liam's Melbourne-based punk rock band Laura Palmer at some point. So there you go. You heard it here first, people. You want to know about the music scene in Melbourne, Australia? Your first port of call should be the Guy and Harley podcast in Auckland.
Yeah, well, I mean, I do think things do get better a lot of the time. I think we all go through peaks and troughs, really. The reality is that you hit your slumps, you hit your lows. It all seems like everything's gone to shit. Things do often pick up from then. You're in those giddy heights, everything's going right, things are working out for you, and then you'll hit one of those other slumps. So,
do you know what the worst thing is, though? Is when everything's going right for you, but you still feel like you're in a slump.
Absolutely.
That's when it becomes difficult. When you can't take joy from the wins, from the highs. The highs are not as high as they once were.
Yeah.
So.
Why are you speaking from experience?
Of course, sometimes it happens all the time where I'm like for example, right now I'm feeling a bit odd today, sort of anxious, and yet there's not really a good reason for it in my greater life. Exciting things are happening. Immi the Vegan is coming out, hopefully. We're currently contacting people and pitching it to people and stuff. Things are finished. Older's going to come out this year, I hope. Immi the Vegan's going to come out this year. No caller ID is just waiting to be put out. Just got to do it. There's lots of exciting things going on. But, I feel today I was feeling sort of anxious and unsettled, and I couldn't exactly put my finger on why. And I think it's really the culmination of various things in my life, like having no work.
Yeah, I'll put a fucking finger on it. You're fucking unemployed.
Yeah.
You have no idea what the future holds for you in a professional sense. You have no idea where your next paycheck is coming from. You're in this total uncertainty around a global pandemic, and you cannot speak to people in real life or have any type of normal social interactions. There's a lot to be fucking anxious about.
Yeah, well, you're absolutely right. And I'm trying to make some big decisions about my life as well. But so I do know what I need though. I need a good cuddle and cry. Just let it all out. Preferably, in my bed, preferably with a woman. But
preferably,
we can negotiate on the specifics.
Preferably as you ejaculate.
Well, no. We'll do that afterwards.
Preferably simultaneously as you ejaculate. A good cuddle and a cry. Oh, yes. My life is tough.
No, we'll do that afterwards. We'll do that afterwards once I've cleaned myself up, got my
Right.
tears, all the snot off my
Once you've
face.
sorted yourself out.
I'm an ugly crier.
Yeah, well, look, I don't think it's strange at all that you'd be feeling like that. Uncertainty uncertainty is one of the, when you don't know, when you can't make a plan, or all your plans are up in the air. It's the same when you're looking for a house and you think, oh fuck, I might be homeless. And it's like, I have no job and I don't know what my next job will be. And I don't have income. I don't know where my next income is incoming. I mean, those are really quite big. They're big,
disconcerting issues.
Well, they're big life issues. They're big life issues, and so I would be fucking feeling terrible if I was you.
Yeah, well, all this at a time when I'm more isolated than I've ever been, and in these unprecedented, international uncertain times as well. It's all very disconcerting, but nevertheless, I showed up. We're on the show. We're doing it anyway.
Well, that's what you got to do.
You know what I did before the show? At about 6:10, I went for a walk. I just got out of the house in my Ugg boots and my track pants, completely in my pajamas, and just went for a walk up the road and breathed the fresh air, because that's the other thing too. I'm going fucking stir crazy up in this sumbitch, like it's day fucking 42 and I'm still unemployed and I'm still being told to stay home and I'm non-essential and all that stuff. So I'm doing a good job. I'm staying home, but I'm going fucking nuts.
Also,
at the same time, it's all catching up on me.
We should say that your room as well, as a base of operations, is very claustrophobic and very oppressive. Your window looks out to fucking nothing.
No sunlight comes
zero,
no sun
zero
comes
sunlight.
No sun. Sometimes I have to switch on the lamp at 12 p.m. in the middle of the day. I'm like, I better turn on the lamp because I can't fucking see.
Your room is a weird shape, which allows you no sort of real space. You have your sort of bed and you have your computer desk next to it, and then there's a toilet behind there, and then an ensuite.
Thank you very much.
And next to that is a little sort of desk where you make toast. But none of it is ideal. None of it. It's not the wide open spaces that humans need.
Well, you're right.
Seasonal affective disorder and all that sort of thing.
To be honest, I think that's why I had to kind of get out of the house. I just kind of threw myself out of the house and didn't lock the door behind me and went up onto the street in my Ugg boots because of how anxious I was feeling and all that. And part of it was this claustrophobia, being stuck in this little room all day, every day. And of course I can go out, but I'm not super unmotivated to go out. I've just got literally nothing to go out for. I went for walks for like 35 days in a row where I'd walk up to the end of the driveway and either turn left or turn right. And I didn't know until I got there. And then I'd just go to one of the nearby parks and have a stretch and a walk around and come back basically. But eventually I was like, man, I'm getting fucking bored of walking nowhere to do nothing by myself.
Well, not only that.
And it's getting colder now as well.
The weather has turned. So when that used to be like a balmy walk, the fresh air,
it was enjoyable.
The birds are chirping, the sun, the birds are singing, the sun is shining. The sun is singing, the birds are shining, and it's just the best, and you're like, that's right, the fresh air, this is brilliant. Now you go outside, it's grey, it's cold, it's dank, and you're just kind of like, oh, fuck, this is not pleasurable. This outside air is not pleasurable hitting my face. And so even that is the motivation to sort of get out and do anything. The rewards are much less.
Stop what you're saying right now.
Why?
Because I had to record on Skype.
Good. That's good.
So now we're rolling on Skype.
Now we're rolling on Skype, the classic. The good news is that it didn't fuck up the YouTube like it did for 1 second, but then it corrected itself.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
But I absolutely can see why you'd be quite anxious and vexed, some consternation. I recall a time when I was.
I've had like 9 shits.
What, today?
Today. Yeah.
What have you been eating?
Nothing.
Toast.
I'm just a lonely bachelor. I had a piece of last night's cold pizza, and now I'm washing it down with a very fancy, lovely whiskey.
Well, we'll get to that in a second. But I will tell a little story about going stir crazy. So, when I first went to London and I was staying with my granddad, I lived in the upper apartment in the upper loft on the third floor, which was quite small, was quite claustrophobic. It was just me there, and I had no fucking friends, and I had no one to talk to, and I had this was before Skype, this was before Facebook, this was basically before the fucking internet. The only way I could communicate with people was either talk to them on the phone, except no one's awake when I'm awake because they're all in New Zealand on opposite time zones, and also no one talked on the fucking phone to people overseas because it cost a shit ton of money. Then, there was no way I couldn't even flick anyone a message or anything like that. So the only way I'd ever get any communication from anyone was just the odd email every month or so when people could be bothered, which they couldn't. And so I was just stuck there, and I was writing the script. And I was like, cool, I'm going to be proactive. I'm going to write this script. And I remember just going, all I hear every single day is my own fucking voice in my head. And all I'm doing is sitting up here in this fucking room and with no outlet for anything.
That's probably why so many authors write novels about people going crazy, writing in the woods or isolating in the woods.
And anyway, it's that sense of total isolation, total and it was just like, internally screaming because there was no one to communicate. There was no one to communicate with. Yes, I could.
Well, that's what I'm feeling.
So you've got that.
That's what I'm feeling.
You've got
today.
that now.
All of that, and it's also combined with trying to make big decisions in my life. Like, for example, I am giving some very serious consideration to moving to Dunedin in the immediate future, in 4 weeks or something like that. I'm basically just waiting to hear from the bank if they'll approve me or not. I'm still standing by. It's looking promising, but I'm waiting to hear. So I guess I'll let you know next episode. But I should hopefully theoretically hear tomorrow if the house is if they're going to loan me for the house, give me a mortgage for the house. So that's another thing that's probably also making me feel a little bit anxious today, is that everything's all lined up for them to call me tomorrow and say, you've got the money, and then at which point I'll have to give my notice to my flatmate and give him 4 weeks and say I'm going to be gone, and then start booking shit and actually literally moving across the country while I have no job, to take a huge gamble on buying a house at a crazy and tumultuous time in our history. So I feel good. I feel reasonably good about my plan, but nevertheless, that does come with some.
Well,
nerves.
You haven't really talked about the plan, have you? This go to Dunedin and buy a house plan. You haven't really talked about that on the podcast.
Well, this was born on the podcast. It was born after the Great Debate. It was because we had a big debate. My big issue was that I wanted to make a passive income from videos and stuff online, and I'd always assumed that that's what would happen. And then what you argued that you didn't want to make online content and all that type of thing. So I realized that I was just going to be making a feature film every 5 years or so. So I was like, well, shit, I need another way to earn a passive income and figure this out. And I was like, well, a rental. And so that was when I changed my mind to. I was like, I'm going to buy a house somewhere, and ultimately that place that made the most sense was Dunedin, our home city, basically. So from that day forward, I worked towards that goal, and now it is finally happening. But we haven't spoken about it in depth, really, about what my plan is or anything like that.
Well, break that down.
Well, I'm buying a house with my brother, basically. I'm buying a place. See, the good news is my brother is in a steady government job. He's a military man. He's in a steady government job, and he lives on the base. And so what that means is that he has this. That looks really good on the application. And I was earning a good enough money before all of this end of the world stuff happened that I could also put in for the mortgage. And now what we're waiting to hear is if the bank will still go for it in the new financial environment.
The new normal.
Yeah, exactly. So they might say that because my work's a little more ropey than my brother's, that they don't want to give us the money, but I don't think so.
They might say because you're unemployed and have no jobs until the end of the year that you're not a great prospect for a home loan.
For a several $100,000 loan.
They might come to that conclusion.
They might, and that's what I have to prepare myself for, is tomorrow they might say that. Now, if they say that, then that will be quite a big kick in the guts, in the sense that it's like, okay, I've actually started feeling quite good once I realized I had a plan that I would go now. And the reason why I'd go now is because I don't have as much work in Auckland anyway. And the big problem before, in the old world, was that I didn't want to lose out all my contracts and let all my contracts in Auckland die and all my freelancing connections and all my work die in Auckland, so that I had to go live in Dunedin while I get this house set up. But now, if the work is very quiet in the broadcasting industry, which it's looking like it is, then why not go right now and just get it sorted now while I still maybe have a chance, and then just find some work down there.
Yep. So there is a possibility that you will be moving to dirty Dunners.
Yeah, it'll be the Dunedin. Yeah, well, luckily the Skype thing works so well. Here's hoping that we have good enough internet, that I have good enough internet in Dunedin, that these Skype podcasts work so well. But so far, this Skype setup's been fucking awesome for the podcast.
Well, Skype is very handy because, there's half an hour either side of going somewhere to set up the podcast, which there isn't so much now. So that is very useful, but also what is useful is the fact that the entire world has ground to a halt. So we have a bit more spare time on our hands that we can offer.
Figure it out and get things looking nice and all that stuff.
Now, my only concern about your trip to Dunedin is that it's that the idea, and I have raised this with you before, but the idea that the house is not going to be profitable in the sense that the house is going to cost you money to a point that it doesn't actually give you a passive income. But you're not worried about that.
No, but the reason why I'm not worried about it is because I've crunched the numbers and I know how much the repayments are for a mortgage. If I buy a house for X amount and I've got a deposit of X amount, then and the interest rate is X amount, then the repayments are X amount. And so I know what those repayment numbers are, depending on obviously which house I buy. But so basically it's less than rent, and it's divided by two of us. So I'm not really too worried about that. But the other thing too is that you're essentially betting against the housing market. Like everybody I know, a lot of our friends have bought houses, and every single one of them is turned a sizable profit so far, including a dear friend of ours who's bought a house in Dunedin recently.
Okay, because yes, I guess I've heard some converse stories about house buying and people owning houses and how much it costs them versus if they're sort of making anything from their rentals or from themselves paying on it. But I guess my concern is not so much those two hard figures, but the variable expenses of the damage and ongoing maintenance that flatmates cause, and the housing taxes that you have to pay. Those are my concerns.
That's where the gamble is. Obviously, you're gambling on whether or not you're going to get good tenants in your house. So that's always a concern, and you're also gambling onto whether or not the house has anything wrong with it that you haven't really thought about yet or haven't noticed yet. So this is all part of the gamble. But overall, I mean, every investment's a gamble, right?
It's true. Absolutely, it's true.
So you got to gamble at some point, and I'm feeling pretty. This one's safe as houses, I reckon.
Whereas my types of gambles are maybe I'm going to buy an expensive camera. That's my type of gamble. Buy an expensive camera. Hopefully.
Well, I guess we'll
get better jobs and also potentially hire that camera out and make back its money that way.
Well, it's not a bad idea. I guess we'll see. I guess we'll see which strategy works out.
The thing about the camera is it doesn't have it does have a limited shelf life so if I buy an expensive camera now, it's going to last 5 years from now before it's outdated. So it has to make back its money both in the jobs that it creates for me and the sort of the hireage fees, and preferably a lot more for it to be a truly worthwhile investment. But I guess I'm thinking about creating the Pigville studio in my head. That's my fantasy, is the idea. And to be honest, a great example of that
This is exactly the stuff that I wanted us to do. This is exactly what the stuff I wanted us to do. Get the Pigville studio set up. We invest it. We treat it like a business. All that stuff. That's what I want to do. Well, wanted to do. Well, I still want to, but obviously I'm committed now.
But, you know, a great example of that would be the short film that I just filmed on lockdown. It essentially used a huge amount of the equipment that I had purchased over the past sort of 3 or 4 years and would not have been possible without those purchases having been made. And so it kind of led to a cool new creative thing. And so, you know, I was very pleased to utilize it in that way, as opposed to utilizing it the normal way I use it, which is just to do camera work for people, that's fine as well. But, you know, obviously it's cooler if you can use all that gear to create that low budget or that indie thing, I think. So yeah, well, look, I wish you the best. I hope that it does make money, the house that is, whenever you get it. And I hope that it all does generate a passive income. That's obviously the best outcome. And I hope that you don't get stuck in Dunedin.
Well, the big risk of getting stuck in Dunedin would be if I meet a woman down there who is working or studying down there. Say I'm down there for 6 months or a year, you know, and I get caught up in a relationship, and then it's like, well, hang on, I'm living in my own house in Dunedin, you know, and I'm with a woman, and I've probably got a puppy. So why would I move to Auckland again?
Well, I guess
it depends on.
I guess the answer is
the work set show
in my head. And this is based off talking to people who have sort of using sort of, oh shit, I lost my chain of thought. So
I do that all the time. It makes me feel good when you do it.
Yeah, I read a comment from Jared Lacey who says, "I hope you're both utilizing precautions during this pandemic." We are. We're talking over Skype.
We're talking over Skype. I wondered what he meant
Well,
too.
maybe he's talking about the film I just filmed, which was in my bubble, which, you know, kept it all in the bubble, kept it all in the family.
It was a bubble film. You'll have to check the credits on that one to make sure. But on the credits of that
Verify the bubble.
It's a bubble film.
But it was all shot in my house. It was all shot with the people in my bubble. And we kept it on the level, shall we say. So absolutely taking all the precautions. Also, you know, when I did have COVID-19, I was sure to give it only to the people in my bubble who helped me make the film, you know.
That's very responsible.
Because, and we kept all that COVID in the bubble. So we were all good. But yeah, so no, I do hope it works out. I don't obviously hope that you get stuck down there, but that was the point I was going to make, is if you're a upstanding young woman, let's say in her early 20s, realistic, early 20s, who's just studying, after she studies, where does she want to go? Bright lights, big city of Auckland. There's no fucking way that she wants to stay in Dunedin, dreary old Dunedin.
Yeah, well, you're right that if I have a 20-year-old student girlfriend... But what if she's still studying for another 2 years? What if well, she's got 2 more years until she finishes? So I'm
What's
stuck.
funny, because I was in that very situation. If we will, you know, recall back to a...
Because obviously the concept here is that I'm dating a 20-year-old Dunedin student. If people who are not aware might not realize that Dunedin is a famous student town.
So in my experience, I was dating not a 20-year-old student, and she was in fact just coming to the end of her studies. And it was like, cool, we're going to get together when you're going to move up here, or most likely you're going to move up here. You may not move up here. Maybe you'll go to Australia or whatever. But what happened is essentially she did not pass her final year of studies. She had to retake them. And it was like, oh, can't wait a year. Fuck that. Well, let's just give up. And so that was the solution. Of course.
Well, the thing is, there's something to be said for just nipping
it up.
Long distance in the bud. You just get rid of long distance. Just if you're trying it out there, people, just
I just want to fast forward a little bit to cut to a year later, after she finished her studies. She moved straight up to Auckland, got an incredibly high-paying job, and married the man of her dreams. and all was well. So it was
blocked you,
blocked me,
remained friends
with you, 100% blocked me. Look, really.
Now I have to give you updates on her.
Really reluctantly had to talk to me one time when she bumped into me, and then made an excuse and stood over in a corner by herself rather than continue to talk to me. Many things happened. But the important thing is that she's happily married and she wants nothing to do with me.
And that you are happily in a relationship
with
the love of your life.
And I'm happily in a new relationship with someone I did wait a year for, and everything is brilliant.
Saved you there, buddy.
Everything is wonderful now.
Yeah, good. All right. Yeah, no, I don't date 20-year-old students. I just date students for 20 years. That's what I do. Now it's probably time to so yeah, I mean, obviously the house thing is going to be an ongoing thing. We're going to be hearing more about it on the show if it happens. Well, even if it doesn't, I'll tell you. But if it does happen, if I hear tomorrow the answer is yes, and I move to Dunedin, that's going to affect the show slightly. So we might hear more about that. But in the meantime, we better open up our favorite segment, Buzz on Bumble.
Buzz.
Good. That's the intro. We just play that every time. It's a pre-recorded intro. So I did match with an attractive woman on Bumble. I just had a few swipes.
All right. Yeah.
For no really good reason. And she messaged me. She said, "How's your day going?" Which was a disappointing opening message. I'll level with you. But I replied with a solid couple of paragraphs about my day, and then ended on a couple of questions for her.
Some questions,
to which she replied. Wow, that sounds so interesting.
No further.
Yeah, so I left her on scene. She's clearly not my baby mama. She can't have a basic conversation. So, like, imagine if you did that in real life, right? You walk up and you just go, "How's your day going?" And then, you reply with a couple of paragraphs and then ask a couple of questions back. And then they go, "Wow, that sounds interesting." And then just stands there staring at you. With no follow-up questions or anything like that.
Well, actually, not only staring at you, but moving around you to look at you from a different angle, and then requesting that you take your shirt off to see how you look, and then requesting that you put a different outfit on and see how you look with that, and then walking across the road and looking at you from a distance.
Yeah,
because that's essentially what they're doing. Because there's just, rather than reply to you, because what they're doing is they're rethinking this conversation. They're like, "Holy shit, I've struck up a conversation with an uggo, and now I need to analyze their photos. I really need to analyze these things."
That's how you. This is an interesting reflection on the different ways that we view the world. So you see it like, well, obviously she's not putting in effort. Because you're an ugmo and she's having second thoughts. Yeah. Okay. See, that didn't occur to me. Didn't even occur to me. This is my completely different outlook on life. I just thought she was a fucking weirdo who was shit at talking. And I was like, all right,
she's got conversations for days with other people, just not you.
Yeah, no, that's not what I thought. It didn't occur to me.
Thought she was
just. Occur to me. I get. Yeah.
Yeah. No, she. Because look. That's happened to me. Is that I've clicked on a thing, I've started a conversation, and then I've reassessed, and I've also reassessed based on the other people that are talking to me at the time, and
well, look, that's
and I've
true.
I've gone, really, this person is at the bottom here. So how much effort?
So whoa, that's so interesting.
How much effort do I really want to put in right now when I've got all these actual handsome people that I'm talking to at the same time?
Yeah.
This guy was just a shot in the dark, like, fuck whatever. And that's where you find yourself now.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess I didn't really think of it that way. I kind of pictured her sitting there being like, "Why isn't he trying harder? oh no, I really like this guy, but I'm just too shit at making conversation, and I'm not used to having to make the effort, because I'm so pretty. I'm not used to having to make the effort. So obviously I'm expecting this guy to come along and send me all the messages and do all the things and ask me to go to the place. That's what I thought was going on in her mind, and I was like, tough luck, lady. You failed the test. You didn't make it through the filter. So she thinks she's rejected me. I've already rejected her. What's she on about?
You've rejected her for her conversation skills. She's rejected you for how you look.
Well, I didn't reply to her. I left her on scene. Yeah. I left her on scene. So I really feel like I had the last laugh. So
you're claiming the last laugh on that one. Yeah. Well,
you asked me about what happened with the English Rose, who was a beautiful and lovely English woman that I went on a few dates with, before the lockdown and all that stuff.
Yeah.
And it kind of petered out a little bit. But the truth is that her name was Karen.
Fucking Karen.
I couldn't live, laugh, love with that.
Yeah.
So
Karens have gotten a real bad rap ever since the Karen thing.
Yeah. It's crazy. Imagine going through this, in all seriousness, imagine going through this crazy pandemic, this crazy, weird time in humanity's history, and at the same time, every day you open your social media and get told by various hilarious memes that you are to blame for virtually all of the ills that are happening. Yep. You're the butt of the joke for virtually all of the ills that are happening. And at the same time, you then have to get up out of bed and go outside into the real world in this crazy time. Poor Karens. I feel sorry for all the Karens out there. Shout out to all the Karens, all right? I'm going to call this episode Karen.
Well, not only are they, facing this stigma that they, it really.
For the record, I would just like to say that I'd love to go on another date with the English Rose. By the way, after this all clears over, I can get over the
reply to your Bumble, Karen. Come on, Karen.
No, that's not Karen.
What?
Well, there's no. What do you mean reply to a Bumble? She replies to me. We just haven't gone on any extra dates. It's impossible to date. You
say that, but if I know quite a few people that have started the breach. The breach has happened now. Yeah.
Well, to be honest, I've thought it would be nice to maybe ask somebody
to breach together.
Well, yeah, and maybe we could even just start with a takeaway coffee and a walk in the park.
Yep. 2 meters apart at all times.
Yeah, just someone to have a chat to, but somebody with the potential to turn into a romantic lover.
Why don't you fucking message Karen?
Well, she lives far away. This is the issue. I don't have a car.
Oh, I forgot about it.
My car has been trapped on the other side of the country, so I'm currently got to date people within a 2-kilometer radius.
That's a real problem, actually.
If you live in Kingsland, Auckland, or the surrounding suburbs, just slide into my DMs, okay?
Yeah, you might have a chance. But I forgot about that no car thing. That's going to really hamstring you in this sort of covert lockdown dating that everyone else is doing, but you're not doing. Have you got a car?
I'm not doing it.
No. Oh, well, fuck off then, Karen.
Well, I'm a carless,
jobless
man in his late 30s. This is what I've become.
In the twilight of his 30s.
The twilight of my glory years. Oh, great. This is an inspiring show. Look, this is kind of why what I think is good about this show a little bit is that sometimes it does get a little bit real lifey.
Sure.
Yeah. It's not all entertainment. Sometimes the entertainment is watching our lives go down the gurgler from afar.
Absolutely. Because we could all relate.
Yeah.
We could all relate. So, speaking of that, I will quickly say, you did get a birthday gift from she who shall not be named.
And so yeah, I did get a belated birthday gift, which got sitting right beside me here, and if you look on the live stream, you'll see it's a lovely bottle of whiskey which I received, and that is tonight's alcohol sponsorship on the show. I got a Lafroig. I don't know how to say that. Lafroig, the Irish whiskey from the Isle of Islay single malt Scotch whiskey select. Anyway, the fancy stuff.
Only the good stuff.
And a lovely glass that goes with it too. So yes, I did receive a belated birthday present from She Who Shall Not Be Named, and it made my day.
I have a couple of questions about this. Okay. Did she send you a birthday present last year?
I don't believe so. I don't believe so.
Intriguing.
My assumption is that it's related to the lockdown and the reaching out and caring for those people that are important to you in this tumultuous time.
Yeah.
This extra tumultuous time, more tumultuous than normal.
That you hold a candle for still, perhaps.
Don't do it. I just can't open that wound. You know what, the taxi driver, the Uber driver?
Yeah, the one that was like, you should go, bro.
He was like, he was driving me to go see her in LA at her boyfriend's house, and he goes, so you're gonna go see your baby, you're gonna go see your ex-girlfriend at her baby daddy's house? I wouldn't do that, bro. I can turn this car around right now, man. Now, the bit that's interesting about that is that he also said, after I explained to him why I was going to go visit my ex-girlfriend, you can go hear all about this in the LA episode and the one after it. And the thing was that he said, I know why you're going. You're going to shut the door. You're going to shut the door. And I was like, I'm going to shut the door.
It.
That was, but I lost my Mexican accent at the end there.
That's exactly what I'm doing.
And I was like, exactly, I'm shutting the door.
That's the only reason. That's the only reason I'm here. I'm just shutting the door. That's the only reason I'm driving an hour in this Uber.
In an Uber in LA to go and see my ex-girlfriend at her baby daddy's house.
I'm just shutting the door. There'll be no other reason for this except to shut the door right now. Shut the front door.
So if you could stop trying to wriggle the door open, guy. Stop wriggling the door open. I've shut the door.
I feel like look, I'm the first to tell you when a door is shut. And I felt like this.
Yeah, that's your favorite thing.
I felt like this door was closed a long time ago. But with this whiskey, I feel like the door has opened. It's just ajar, a crack. And a jar. It's kind of like she's sitting there in LA. Maybe it's not ideal. Maybe her new boyfriend is getting on her nerves. And she's just like, this isn't the life that I wanted. This isn't exactly how I imagined all this happening. And maybe this wasn't the right guy. The guy before this guy was the guy. And just
this new guy
with a beautiful head of hair.
This bald-backed, hairy-headed usurper. The cuckoo laying his cuckoo's egg in my nest.
Is maybe, just maybe, I've made an error of judgment here.
He's too tall. It's no good. It'll never work.
Maybe I've made an error of judgment. And this lament in her mind, and this little moment has led to this act of kindness and this birthday gift that she wouldn't have otherwise done if the door had been completely closed for her.
Yeah, well, look, I hope you're right, but she will be listening. So shout out to
shout out to Angie. There we go.
Yes, indeed. So thank you very much for that lovely birthday gift.
I tell you what, certainly none of my exes have ever sent me a beautiful bottle of whiskey.
Oh, mate,
a few years after,
envelope with an unidentifiable white powder in it, a serious and scary looking white powder in it, or something.
Yeah,
anthrax.
While they blocked me on Facebook and
It's the same thing. That's the same version.
That's the
In
equivalent.
2020, blocking on Facebook is the equivalent of posting anthrax. In our parents' day, they used to just post each other anthrax when they broke up.
So, yeah, now I think it's important. I do have a couple of things to talk about. So first is my dear friend Naomi in the UK is listening, or she's catching back up. So she's actually going to catch up to this episode in about 5 weeks' time, and she's listening to the beginning of this right now, and she's like, "Wow, Harley had a really sort of different take on what was going to happen here, didn't he?" And I was like, "Yes, if you continue to listen, I remind him of the 10% a teapot remark every single episode." So that was the thing that struck her, was just your blasé casual attitude, which has now done a complete 180.
Well, I mean, I feel like sometimes people just don't recognize a good trolling when they see one.
Oh, it's a good cover. That's a great cover.
Well, I mean, it's well within character, isn't it?
That's a good cover. That's a great cover for your ignorant statements.
Well, I feel like if you go back and listen to the episode, you will hear the tongue planted firmly in my cheek.
Well, to me, it's the ignorance firmly planted in your head at the time.
Well, the people will just have to go back and listen to episode, I believe it was called The Quarantines, possibly. That might have been the Quarantines episode, I'm not sure.
But we are taking everyone through this this lockdown situation, and so today the government has announced that the government has announced that I just got an email about doing some work, which is always depressing. You know,
unless you're an unemployed person.
Yeah, well, yes, it's more doing work.
It's all about content.
Yeah, exactly. For me, it's work that maybe I should have done, but have not done yet. It should be doing at this very moment.
Even I've got work that I have not done that I should have done yet, and yet somehow I find myself trapped in this little room all day. I do achieve a lot of things, but still I don't achieve everything. A lot of the time is spent lying, staring at the roof.
You do achieve a lot of things.
But I have a break. Those are my breaks. On my breaks, when I'm not sitting at the computer, I go for a break and I lie on the bed and stare at the roof.
You do achieve a lot of things.
A hell of a lot.
Apart from fulfilling your obligations. That's the bit that you're.
Nah, they all get done. My obligations all get done.
So now, the government has announced today what COVID-19 level 2 lockdown or unlocked down is going to look like. Have you heard about this?
Yes, I mean, I watched the announcement today with Jacinda, Auntie Cindy, my mate. Yeah, and I watched it. But yes, continue.
I guess to give context for people that aren't in New Zealand, we've basically had a string of days where we've had between 0 and 2 COVID cases per day. So I think it's been 0, 2, 1, and 1, or something like that, or maybe 1 and 2 in terms of new cases. So the new cases, and I think the more important thing to note about those new cases is they're connected to clusters, right? So a cluster is obviously a group of people that had it and have been spreading it. So none of these new cases each day at the moment are related to, we just found some guy walking down the street and he's got COVID out of nowhere, because that's when there's a real problem. If they're connected to a cluster that's recognized, okay, we know where it's coming from, we know how it got to that person, and we can isolate and shut it down. It's when you get those random COVIDs out of nowhere that people are like, well, holy fucking shit, now we've got a problem, now we've got to escalate our lockdowns. So anyway, in all of this, New Zealand is doing very well so far, based on what we know at this time, based on the testing that we have made, and essentially we're now at a place where they're going to ease the restrictions again. So going from level 4 to level 3 meant absolutely jack shit. It was really do exactly the same stuff, but go and order some takeaways. support local businesses, order some takeaways. That's it. Now, people haven't been treating it like that, but really that's the only difference. Plus some essential workers can go back to work. So if you're a builder, for example,
but this is level 3.
This is level 3. Or... Yeah, you can go back to work. So they estimate a lot of people went back to work that couldn't. But for the sort of the layman, the person like us, what's the difference between level 4 and level 3? I can order Hell's Pizza. I can queue up at McDonald's and get a get a furious Facebook lashing from Harley Neville. That
was an angry post.
That's the only difference. But level 2 is quite a bit different. So level 2 is where things kind of go back to some degree to normal. So, for example, most people will be able to go back to work, although it is encouraged that you still work from home. You can have group gatherings of 100 people, no more than 100 people, but you must maintain the old 2-meter thing. So
your orgies must have 100 people or less. People,
yeah.
All right? Are we paying attention here? 100 people or less per orgy.
And also the idea is because gyms and restaurants and bars have all been sort of closed for this time. Now the restaurants have sort of opened up in a takeaway capacity, but now we're saying bars can open up if everyone sits like a distance away from each other. There's no more than 100 people, and they sort of fucking wash their hands and shit, basically.
Man. What is the fucking point of going to a bar? The whole point of going to a bar...
You want to get closer than 1 meter.
You want to get close to people. Exactly. If you're going out to the club, if you're going out to the club on a Friday night, or like you're going to a bar, I mean, the idea behind socializing in a bar, I feel, is, some of it is sort of somewhat motivated by fornication.
Yeah, and
fornication,
prohibited.
For most of us... Well, it's not prohibited for those of us who are, sufficiently endowed with the 2.1 meter penis, such as myself. I'm actually okay. I've been having sex this whole time and socially isolating. But for the average man, you've got to get well within 2 meters.
Well, look, I think this is an interesting thing because they're like, yeah, we're opening up bars and nightclubs. It's like, cool. So I'm going to go to a nightclub. I'm going to talk at you from a distance. I'm not really going to be able to hear what you're going to say.
Well, can you imagine trying to hit on somebody? Hey!
How you doing over there?
Did it hurt when you fell from heaven? That line never fails, by the way.
I've just realized we just have to take a pause. What did it? If you fell from heaven, I've got to restart my camera. So just stand by. Harley's going to talk about his experience in the club.
Oh, okay. All right. It's cool. This is a wee behind the scenes moment just for the live streamers. This is why you're lucky, right? This is why you do it on the live stream. This is why you come tune in. You want to catch these moments. This is what it's all about. I'll tell you what I'll do. Go and find one of my hilarious rants, unless somebody's got some questions for me. By the way, shout out to the Chris and Sam podcast. I'll give you a proper shout out soon. I've got a wee shout out segment coming up. But we did see your comments. I just haven't had the chance to chat about that. It is see if I can find see, I've got a bunch of rants here which are written once and then put into this file called rants, and then I haven't edited them, so if I read them without checking them first, they'll probably be bullshit.
I'm back.
Good. I didn't talk about anything.
I know, it's good. You're firing up a rant.
My notes. No, well, I was looking through my notes trying to find a good rant here, as opposed to just choosing one and reading it. Because if I just choose one and read it, it probably won't be very good. So anyway, where did we get to?
Well, my girlfriend's playing tricks on me by tugging on my mullet while I'm trying to be podcasting. So I don't appreciate that. Secondly, we're just talking about the club situation. So why would you go to a club? Like, I can see a bar, right? A bar, a casual drink amongst friends. that would be quite pleasant. But to go to a club with these new level 2 social restrictions, it
paying all that money
defeats the purpose. How much you spend on alcohol to stand 2 meters away, and then, like, you know, at a certain point, the conversation's going well, and you take a step forward. You you reach out, and a bouncer walks in and slaps your hand away, and he goes, "Oi, take a step back, pal. This ain't a fucking orgy over here, mate."
Yeah.
Respect
It'll be like a
level
Christian
2.
party.
Total Christian party at the nightclubs.
It'll be a Christian party at the church, and you'll all be boogieing 2 meters apart, and speaking from afar.
Yeah. And
hey, that doesn't sound so bad.
And
what's wrong with some good wholesome fun? You got to keep some space between.
And hoping
between the 2 meters is for Jesus.
I was going to say, hoping for Jesus to relieve you at the end of the night when you fall asleep.
I've got a lot of holes in my soul, and I'm really looking forward to getting all of my holes filled by Jesus.
Is that one of your rants?
No.
I thought you were firing one of those up.
No. We were just talking about Jesus.
So, you know, it's an interesting time. Also, essentially, now the government hasn't said this specifically, but it's true that the government has essentially banned sex with anybody not in your personal bubble at level 2 lockdown. Sex is banned. You can't do it unless you know the person. You know, so unless it's a family member or a flatmate,
a close family member. Or your flatmate, there's no sex. But no one's fucking Jacinda. Really let the team down.
No one's talked about this. They've essentially said, like, hey, look, level 2, we're easing these restrictions, but absolutely under no circumstances do not have sex with a new person that you might meet. You're not allowed to do that because then you're breaching social distancing.
Well, who the fuck are all these people that are having sex with strangers? Where the fuck are
they?
Well, they're not talking to me, that's for sure. They're certainly not popping around. How does this work? How does this fucking work?
How it works.
I guess I've got to go outside or something.
Yeah, maybe.
No, it's the internet nowadays. We can order this. We can make this happen. shouldn't have to leave my house. People should just come to me, let me cuddle them and cry for a while, and then have sex, and then go away back about their business, and then we'll see if we like that. And if we like that, then we'll do it again. And if we didn't like it, well, then we all got something out of it.
Well, look, Red Face Pictures says they've read in the States that they've opened drive-through strip clubs.
Yeah, I have heard that. I have seen that as well.
So that's what you'd call a sort of a preserve. And look, this is an important question about that. Now, if you consider, and shout out to my mum who listens to the podcast now. She's keeping up to date, and I apologize for these ruminations. But essentially with the strip club thing, right? Now, if you go to a real strip club, you can't just start jerking off, right? That's frowned upon. You get kicked out for doing that.
That was a big disappointment.
That was a big mistake.
When I turned, that was a big mistake, big disappointment.
Okay, but now
it's one of the first things I learned when I was 18.
But now we're offering these drive-through strip clubs. Now you're in your car. You can't do any harm. The fluids can't go anywhere. Yeah. So
I hear what you're saying. I can totally see what you're going.
Well, when essentially sex has been banned, we've got to find alternatives. Now,
but the thing is that you can't park in your car and say, this is my property, therefore I can jerk off and look out the window. Well, it's just not how it works. Believe me.
Yeah.
That was a legitimate concern of mine, was that, I lived in a van for a long time. Sure. For all up, I lived in a van for about 10 months or so. And so 10 months is quite a long time to live in a van. And so obviously a man has his needs, and sometimes a man might sate those needs in whichever way is necessary when by himself in his van. But the thing is that the van would be parked on these sort of suburban streets, and one of my concerns was like, well, hang on, if I'm living in a van and let's just imagine I'm jerking off in the van, and let's just imagine that somehow I get caught. Like, yes, I am parked in your house, outside your house. I'm parked outside your house and I'm jerking off in a van. That stuff's all true.
Yeah.
But you have to understand, this is my house, this is my home. Where else would I do it? I'm not doing it because I'm outside your house, stranger that's caught me. I'm doing it, because I live here. This is my place.
Don't come into my home. Don't knock on my door.
Yeah, this is really rude. And so I was really a little bit concerned about that, because I was like, imagine if I got a charge for minding my business, jerking off in my van, which is my home, and I get a charge for some sort of, indecent, lewd behavior in public or something like that.
Yeah, I guess that the part that you couldn't explain away is the fact that, the curtains were open and you were peering out into peering out into a person's bedroom. That would be the hard part to justify.
I was parked in their driveway.
That's the part. Well, I have spared a thought for Isaac, our director of photography friend, who lives in a van currently. And one of the first things that occurred to me, well, there's two things that occurred to me. I was like, where are you going to be shitting? Secondly, so you just jerking off in that van? Like, that's just
well, the
what you do?
Is, there's two answers. He's shitting at the gym /
Well, there is no gym.
And yes, there's no gym.
There's no gym on lockdown, my friend.
True.
See, the gym, obviously, the 24-hour gym is the perfect.
For a van dweller at the moment, if you don't have a gym membership, that was how I did it. I just had a gym membership. I'd shit and shower at my gym or my work.
And in fact, I've heard of people, there was a wrestler who I sort of follow who talked about it in a podcast. He lived in a van for a couple of years as he was working his way up the independent scene. And he said that not only would he go to the gym, shower and do everything there, he would also go to the gym, and then in the bathrooms, because often there was plug sockets there, he would cook food. So he'd like make a toasty or something and then just eat it and then walk out, because what are they going to do? He's in the bathroom. Genius.
I mean, no, it's a bit much if you ask me. I feel like there are other places to find a plug, but all right, okay. It's not a bad tip though.
Not a bad tip.
It depends where you're at.
And look,
depends what level you're at. And also, look, in America, I assume
yes,
he's American. So in America, again, it's a bit of a harsher world over there as well. So you do have to eat toilet toasties.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. I think that essentially, he didn't have anywhere that he could just go and hang out.
Yeah.
It was toilet toasties for him. But to me, when I heard that, I was like, brilliant, toilet toasties. He does everything there. This makes a lot of sense. And like come out of the bathroom smelling like cheese toasties and feces.
Now, Tyler Adams had a question on the, or not a question. Well, yeah, that is a question. Sorry, a question on the live stream. He says, Harley, do you think you'll shoot that pandemic time traveling self-love skit?
Yeah.
Which is, he's referring to my skit idea for a time travel story where after finishing the last page of Pornhub in in January 2020, I finished the last page of Pornhub, the last video, and then I time travel to the modern day during the pandemic, and then I end up fucking myself at the end of it. I end up falling in love with myself, well, not even falling in love, just having sex with myself.
What begins as a prophetic cautionary tale becomes a goofy story of a man having sex with himself.
Well, that's the twist. That's the
Yeah.
twist. The answer is that no, I have absolutely no intention of actually shooting it myself. Now, to be honest though, the main issue was that I was like, well, I don't want to deal with all that camera trickery. It's a reasonably complex thing to do, to shoot yourself when you're having a conversation with yourself. There is a certain amount of camera trickery that needs to be done, and visual effects preferably, and all that type of thing. So, and I'm not that interested in doing all of that. But you never know. In the future, I could shoot something like that for sure. You never know. You never ever know.
Do we have any other questions from the listeners? We threw out questions. Don't feel like we've got a lot of questions being asked.
Yeah, well, generally speaking, people are not giving us many listener topics, so that is a problem.
It's not. Yeah.
I do have a couple of shout outs here.
Okay, well let's get into those.
Okay, so I've got a few shout outs. The first one is Drew from Patreon. He's our newest patron. He's pledged for $19.95 a month, which is the maximum that we currently offer on the Patreon page, patreon.com/Pigville. Yep. The reason why, of course, is that he requested the nudes, which I offer for $19.95. So I assume that's what he wanted. I assume that's the only reason someone would give us $19.95 a month. But one of the benefits on the show, on the Patreon page, patreon.com/Pigville, if you want to support us, you can do it for $19.95 a month, and you'll get a zipped folder of behind the scenes photos from our nude photo shoot that we did like a few years ago, and these are the unedited photos of us wearing our cock socks and all that stuff for this nude photo shoot we did a wee while ago. So I did tell Guy about that at the time when I created that, but yeah, I'm whoring Guy's ass out alongside my own for financial gain on the internet. Yeah, so shout out to Drew. And also shout out to Huda Moss, who's a CD160 listener that's still tuning in. He was the madman that went back all the way back to episode 60 and then listened chronologically up until he was up to date, right? From episode 60. That's 106 episodes now, and that takes fucking balls.
Well, why doesn't he go now from 1 to 60?
Well, that's a good question. I guess you'd better ask Huda.
Why did he start at 60?
I guess he just wanted to do the last few years, maybe. He doesn't care what we were doing 5 years ago, maybe. I'm not sure. But yeah, so that takes fucking balls. And he better be careful, though, because as it happens, that Wazza and Mrs. Wazza have gone back to episode 1. And last time I checked in on them, they were up to episode 13.
It's good effort.
They've only got 153 episodes to go, and they will have eclipsed Huda's efforts. So, and also shout out to Nico Medill listening.
Yeah, shout out to Nico in Dunedin. You'll be spending a lot more time with him in the not too distant future.
Well, I hope
he's a good dude. I got to catch up with him just after my hip surgery last Christmas. I'm assuming it was last Christmas. Or was it? No, it was the Christmas before last. I don't even remember. And anyway, it was awesome to see him. It was awesome to catch up with him. He's still he's an artist himself. He's doing it big down there, and he's bought his own house just like you, Harley.
Yeah.
So maybe he can give you some tips.
If he's made any money. Yeah.
Judging by his environment, I would suggest that he wasn't making a huge amount of money.
Speaking of hips.
Yeah.
Your hips don't lie.
They don't.
And what are your hips telling you now?
Well, one of them.
We had an update on Ellic Savage's hip surgery, which is supposed to be coming up at some point.
Well, I think we did talk about this briefly in the sense that they sort of were like, cool, your hip surgery is scheduled for this time. And I was like, sweet. Can't be any later than that time, though, because if it is, I can't do it. And they're like, cool, congratulations. Your hip surgery is confirmed for that time that you said that was too late. And I was like, well, I just said to you guys that I can't fucking do it then. They're like, cool. Well, we'll reschedule that and let you know. That was 6 months ago. Oh, not 6 months ago. It was February, so it was 4 months.
So we're in a
4 months ago.
Well, you've got no update. And
what's happened is that because of the old global pandemic thing, is they've cancelled the they had, for that sort of 5-week period, cancelled elective surgeries, which is what my surgery is, I believe. So essentially what that means is that there's now... The public health system was strained, clearly, because I'd waited almost a year to have the surgery originally. And now to re-wait has been another 6 months. So there's definitely a lot of problems in the sense that, you know, things aren't happening very quickly there, and now they're going to happen even slower. So I don't actually know when that surgery is, but I know that I have to agree to it, otherwise it's just cancelled for good. And I don't want to do that, because what I will say is that my hip, the one that needs the surgery, has definitely been hurting quite a lot as I've been working, because I've been sitting at my computer a lot, obviously, because that's what we've all been doing. And now I'm getting this sort of numb ache on that side, which I used to get from the one that has now had the successful surgery. So that's the update there. I really need it. I have not had it, and I'm in pain.
Well, good. Okay, good. Well, we're all up to date then. Okay, cool. Well, I think that we probably can wrap it up.
Well, I do have a few more things to talk about.
Okay, good. Because I've run out of notes. But if you've got stuff to talk about, fuck
yeah. So just a couple of things. So I did get to watch a great film last night called The Color of Space. Have you heard anything about this, Harley?
Have you heard about this? You seen this? Have you heard about this? No, I haven't. I like the name.
Well, it's actually the color out of space, not the color of space. Corrected by my girlfriend. Thank you. The color out of space.
I like it less. I like that name less.
So basically, the idea is a meteorite crashes in someone's backyard, and
this is a
feature film, and fucked up shit starts happening. That's the basic concept for it, and it stars the one and only Nicolas Cage. Now, people have mixed opinions about Nicolas Cage, but for me, he's a genius. However, he has...
I believe you once said he was on track to be the new...
Jack Nicholson?
Jack Nicholson.
Yes. And I maintain that...
That's what you said.
The problem he has is essentially he had at one point a huge tax debt because his accountant or business manager or whoever basically didn't pay that when he thought that it was being paid. So he amassed this huge tax debt. And to get out of it, he had to do a bunch of shitty B films.
To work his ass
off.
off.
So essentially he has to continue to work for like he's trapped in this never-ending work cycle. So what does that mean? It means that essentially he does a million shit B films. And
is he out of debt?
I don't think so. I think that's going to take him a while, but we don't really know.
Oh, well, somebody needs to start this guy a fucking GoFundMe. The poor bugger. Everybody loves him. He's a deep in
But
debt.
we will also...
The poor guy's stressing every day, acting in the Mummy
So
6.
I will, we do have to preface that, he did spend exorbitant amounts of money. Like, he bought a castle at one point. I think he paid for a Superman #1, which was billions of dollars. So you can't say that he hasn't been frivolously spending. Because
sure,
he was.
But he's a national
He's
treasure.
absolutely a national treasure. And if you want an example of him being a national treasure, then
Watch National Treasure.
I highly recommend The Color Out of Space. He's brilliant in it, and you get everything that you want out of a Nicolas Cage role, which is a little bit of Nicolas Cage crazy.
Is it sci-fi?
It's I guess it's more horror than it is sci-fi, but it is, I guess, a little bit sci-fi. Essentially, that meteorite is an extraterrestrial thing. You're wincing at that, all right. Well,
I'm wincing at the definition of sci-fi there. I'm like, come on, a meteor is a completely natural phenomenon.
Well,
okay. So it's not set in the future. It's a fantasy. Well,
hold up.
But every script's a fantasy.
It's got that meteorite contains an alien substance.
Now it's sci-fi.
All right. So anyway, it's shot beautifully. His performance is amazing. He does, in fact, and I talked about this with my girlfriend, he does kind of like when he starts losing his shit, which obviously he has to do because he's Nicolas Cage, and this is a Nicolas Cage film. Yeah. When we get into the Cage rage, he starts doing a Donald Trump impersonation, which is kind of subtle, but you're just like, oh, this is great. He's throwing Donald Trump in here as well. This is just fucking brilliant. So I highly recommend it. It's basically kind of it's a weird film, but it's kind of like a mismatch, like a mashup of like something like The Thing, which is also one of my favorite films, and it's based on
that's the name of my porn video.
The Thing. And it's also based on a book or a novel by a short story by H.P. Lovecraft, who again is this great horror writer. So it's amazing. I highly recommend it. It's fucking crazy, but it's well worth a watch. Everything about it is cool. So watch that.
That's good to hear, and I'll take that into consideration, and I'm sure the listeners will too.
Cage me Cajun.
Now, my question is, how many times do I give you film recommendations?
Not that often.
No, and so have you checked out the platform?
You know what? I chose to watch this instead of the platform.
Okay.
So the platform is 100% on my list. And in fact, the reason the platform was rejected in the first place before we talked about it was the subtitle, the dubbing, the overdubbing. I chose this over that because I love me some Nicolas Cage. And I do not like overdubbing, but I will get to that.
Yeah, the dubbing's good in the platform. It's not, it's fine. And I don't like
I
dubbing
will get to that, and it is one of the sort of the top recommended sort of horror films of 2020. So I have to watch the platform.
I wouldn't really call it a horror.
Well, that's what they're saying.
They're calling it a horror. Yeah. It's not what I'd call it.
Well, I don't know because I haven't watched it, but I will take that into account. But
you watch it before the next.
Well, how
episode.
many fucking I give recommendations all the time,
and I watch as many as I can.
What was?
I finally saw Django Unchained,
which
it was 8 years later, but I got there, guys.
Yes, it's absolutely true that I may have made that recommendation 8 years ago. That is possible. But yeah, Nicolas Cage, he's great in almost everything he does, but you just have to kind of, you have to know, is this another great film that he did recently, which is kind of a horror film as well, which I also highly, highly recommend, is Mandy. So Mandy is by...
Mandy, well, you came.
So I'm going to have to look this up because... So Mandy is the second film by the director, and this is really hard to pronounce, Panos Cosmatos. That is his fucking name, Panos Cosmatos. Now, obviously, I'm probably not pronouncing that correctly, but he's the director, and he also directed another film called Beyond the Black Rainbow, which...
Where's he from?
He's an American.
That name's not American. Americans are only white and have names like Buck.
Well, obviously, I think his dad is like a famous director as well. But anyway, I say that to say this. Beyond the Black Rainbow was one of my favorite films. It was recommended to me by director of photography friend Jared Murray, and he was like, "You got to check this out, bro." And it highly influenced like a lot of the shit that we were filming and Older and stuff like that. I thought, not obviously the tone of it, but just kind of the look of it, and I really fell in love with the look of it.
And what's it called?
Beyond the Black Rainbow. So again,
I like that name.
It's kind of like this obscure horror / sci-fi film. It's kind of actually like Stranger Things before Stranger Things, as in it deals with a lot of the same elements, but not in that same Spielberg E.T. way, like in a fucked up, like this is totally fucked up kind of way. So I highly recommend that, and I also recommend his second film, Mandy, which stars Nicolas Cage, and I believe we did talk about that on this podcast. And to me, this is the successor. So we've had Mandy, and now we've got The Color from Outer Space, and I highly recommend that. Tyler Adams also pointed out he's great in a lot of things. Raising Arizona, Peggy Sue Got Married, Kick-Ass, and Tiger King. He's great, and Spider-Man. He plays a character in the Spider-Man shit. I can't remember what it is, but it's the new Spider-Man, not the live-action Spider-Man, the animated Spider-Man, which was really good. But he also says he just watched Train to Busan, and
this is what Tyler Adams says on the live stream.
It's a great zombie film, South Korean zombie film. Have we seen it? Yes, I've seen it. Yes, I really enjoyed it. Have you seen it, Harley?
I think we watched it together.
Well, is this the one that you came to? You may have
wrong.
come to the movies with me to see this.
Yeah, I feel like we watched it together, and it was good. I did like it. Yes,
Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. That's what he's talking about. So Nicolas Cage is great in everything, but I highly recommend Beyond the Black Rainbow, Mandy, and this one, The Color Out of Space. All awesome films that are kind of weird and a little bit different in a good way, because what I'm looking for in my movie experience now is just not the same cookie cutter shit. I don't mind those cheesy blockbusters. I can turn my mind off and enjoy those. But what I really get a kick out of
not me
is something like a little bit weird and a little bit fucked up. That's my sweet spot where I'm like, and a good example too would be the film that we watched together, Come to Daddy. It's a little bit weird, it's a little bit fucked up, and it takes you in a different, like, it's not the same as every film you're going to see. Yeah. And I think that's what, to me, that's that sweet spot of what makes a good film to me now, is like, it's not the same as just everything that you're normally seeing. So highly recommend all those films that I just mentioned. And the last topic that I have to bring up is that, and also shout out to Tyler Adams, because he just helped me with poster deliverables for Older. Now,
what a legend.
So essentially, by doing those poster deliverables, it allowed me to do the final deliverables for Older. And when I say deliverables, what are deliverables? We've talked a little bit about on the podcast before, but they're the things that you need to give to your distributor or sales agent to enable them to release it, essentially, or put it.
So it's things like the version with the subtitles.
Yes.
Oh no, they do version with the subtitles. And, a version with this aspect ratio, and a version with that aspect ratio, and a version in this frame rate, or a version in that frame rate, or whatever it is that they've requested.
And a version with the sort of like the various different sound, so 5.1 Dolby surround sound mix versus a stereo mix, and so on and so on. And so essentially, not yesterday, or was it yesterday? What was yesterday? Was yesterday Wednesday?
I don't think anybody minds what
it was. Wednesday. So yesterday, I basically put all our final deliverables on a disk, on a hard drive. I went down to the post office, which is finally fucking open again under level 3 lockdown, and I posted this to our sales agent / distributor in America.
Did you send it like super
speedy?
Like ultimately like super tracked,
I sent it,
and all the insurances and all that shit, or whatever, to make sure it gets.
I sent it tracked, but I did not,
and hoped for the
best.
I
did not send it super speedy, because it was already $65 to send it tracked, and I was like, you know what, that's good, 60. And in fact, what they did say to me when I sent it was, hey, just so you know, there's going to be some delays. And I was like, cool. Wow. Wouldn't be the fucking first time with this film, would it?
Well, yeah.
So, it's only been 6 years of delays, really.
8 years.
No. 2013 November is when we started, my friend.
Yeah, but then you've got to remember that before that, the script needed to be written. And, during that time, I remember when this was agreed upon to be the next Pigville production, was when we finished an episode of the Guy and Harley radio show on Radio Ponsonby, and we've been talking about what to do and whether or not to do it and all that type of thing. And we had a good conversation outside after the show, after Radio Ponsonby, and said, all right, Older's going to be the next thing. Yep. But that was obviously before we'd even shot like the proof of concept trailer or anything like that.
I think it was over a game of pool, if I recall.
No, this was standing outside the radio next to our cars, and you went your way and I went my way afterwards. Good times, Radio Ponsonby. Good times.
So anyway, that was sent away, which is a monumental moment, a monumental occasion.
Yeah, it is.
And
At the same time as that as well, Immi the Vegan is getting sent away to broadcasters potentially. So it's all finally kind of coming together.
yeah, and I think it would have been more monumental if I wasn't thinking in the back of my mind, well, you know, we've got to market it and distribute it over here, and also we need to create some new materials for it, you know, for it to be, you know, sort of the special edition is the wrong word, but like the sort of the elements around it have not been created yet, such as making ofs and stuff. Although Tyler as well created a new trailer for us, which again was one of the things that we sent away, and will be going and hopefully seen all over the world. So it's pretty cool. It's sort of, and I recorded a little piece to camera just to remember where I was and what we were doing, and maybe include it in like a behind the scenes sort of thing.
Oh, that's a good idea.
And it was, I guess, a sense of great relief to have done that, and for it to head away, because, and I will just, you know, tell a quick story. So the last thing that I had to do for those deliverables was I had to watch the film again to check that there was no fuck-ups. But I also wanted to check it with the new subtitles. And what I, of course, realized as I was watching it is there was a fuck-up with the subtitles. Right. So essentially, I started watching it. I came to this horrible realization. It's this pivotal moment in the film, and the subtitles were all wrong. And I was like, what the fuck? Why the fuck are the subtitles wrong? And I realized it was my mistake. So essentially what's happened is the last two changes to the film is that some audio in a phone conversation was changed. And that was changed only sort of, you know, just before lockdown. And then also this His Girl Thursday, watching the television and seeing what's on the television. Those were the very last two things that were changed. And what I realized is while the His Girl Thursday section was in, the new wording of this phone conversation was not. So in watching this, I was like, oh shit. So these subtitles that we just paid, you know, $250 for are wrong. So then I had to go and work out how to edit subtitles online. First, how to view them, how to edit them, and then how to, you know, sort of put them in without undoing, because I essentially didn't want to pay for another set of subtitles just to correct that section. So basically what I thought I would finish at sort of, you know, in the afternoon of that day, I ended up finishing at 4:30 a.m. that night. Or in the following morning, which is just a classic example of what happens when you're making a feature film, is that you do something, you think it's going to be very simple and basic, it seems like a very straightforward thing, and then you realize that there's some kind of weird fuck up that you need to correct. And then because you've got no money, you have to go and correct that fuck up yourself. And to correct that fuck up, you need to learn a whole new skill set to correct the fuck up. And then you have to kind of test it and fuck around with it and all that sort of thing. So at the end of 4:30 a.m., I'd sort of changed the subtitles. And again, I had to keep trying different versions to get the timing right, because the timing didn't match on my version versus the final version. There was some sort of weird thing with the time code.
That sounds like it would drive me fucking nuts. It sounds like I would hate that.
Sure.
I would hate that entire situation.
Absolutely.
The job, the enormity of having to fix it, of having to figure out all of that stuff, that's got to be figured out just to learn how to do it, let alone then going and actually implementing it and getting it right. And for it to be such a niggly, annoying thing, and a sort of ultimately sort of unimportant in the sense that in the grand scheme of things, you know, and like chances are if they're watching with subtitles, they're either watching I guess they could be deaf. In which case, they're not going to know what you really said anyway, because it's a phone. It's a phone conversation.
Case, it does not matter. In which case, you would get away with it if they were deaf and they were watching that scene. They'd go, "Cool, That all makes sense
Yeah,
because my subtitles in that scene are fine. The subtitles that are wrong is what is being said on the phone to me.
right.
So it's
So you wouldn't even know by watching the lip sync.
exactly.
You'd have no idea. And then the same thing is you'd also have no idea if you were watching it with subtitles because you were in a place where you couldn't turn up the audio. You'd have no idea that it was different. And then likewise, the other way you might be using the subtitles would be if you were a foreign person whose English was your second language, and you have the English subtitles because it helps. It's convenient. It helps you, understand what's going on to have the English subtitles. But again, you wouldn't well, I guess in that case you might know depending on your level of English. But you might not
Because
pick up
also
on
the other thing is they're saying very similar things, right?
Yeah.
They're not even saying like extremely different things. They're basically saying the same thing in a slightly different way, which makes it even more fucking pointless. And the only reason that I didn't sort of go, oh, well, fuck it, fuck you all then, is because essentially essentially what now happens is it goes through QC checks, which is quality checks, which means that essentially
quality control.
Your film is looked at and sort of looked at by the platforms that it might go onto. So, for example, our film will most likely go onto a bunch of streaming platforms, including sort of Amazon Prime and maybe iTunes and stuff like that. Okay, so the first thing they do is they check that the subtitles match the words that are being said. And the first thing they notice is that, well, wait a second, this whole scene is wrong. Now, if they didn't check it very carefully, you might totally get away with that. But if they did,
they wouldn't check it. Like, as in they'll check it, but they won't check it that carefully. And the reason why I say this is because one of my jobs was I was a QC.
Yeah.
I was a QC guy. My job was to quality control shit. And let me tell you, somebody should have been there controlling the quality of my work.
So if they got a Harley Neville, I'd be totally fine. If you got someone a bit more pedantic, then maybe not. But all of it is purely to stop the idea of being rejected and having to redo everything again and resend everything again and blah 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 blah. All of it is totally pointless. To your point, all of it is totally pointless and probably means nothing and still is required. And that is what filmmaking is over and over again, especially when you get into post-production. When you get into post-production.
And that's why it's so slow, and that's why it takes us so long to get anything done, because there's all this pedantic, time-consuming stuff that needs to be done, and it's like, well, if you're not paying somebody to do it, then somebody needs to do it, and it's all time-consuming and slow.
I just think that encapsulates independent filmmaking as a whole, that kind of thing happening, and it's also encapsulates Older as a whole in the way that you're just trying, you're pushing forward to this thing, and then there's these weird, strange, fucking things. You're like, what? Oh, I've got to fucking figure that out as well. Oh, fuck my life. All right, well, I'll do that times 1,000. But that's done now. It has been sent away. Fingers crossed.
It's done. It's sent.
And
Immi the Vegan is sent to people that have the potential to buy it. It's completed. So we've got 2 completed projects now out there trying to be sold, which is pretty cool. That's pretty cool if you ask me. After all these years, it's very cool. For anybody who's been listening long term, they'll know, well, shit, I remember when Older started, or shit, I remem when Immi the Vegan started.
Or you at least go, well, shit, I remember when Older was midway through.
Well, it's true that we weren't doing the podcast when we shot.
Not
Older.
quite, no.
So this podcast has been going for 5 years, and in that entire time, we've been talking about Older coming out. For 5 whole years.
The good news is that now we've gotten so old that the Older sequel, which should happen exactly a decade after the original Older, is only 3 years away.
We can shoot it right now.
Well, we can shoot it. We can shoot it right now, but we should shoot it in about 2 to 3 years, and then
I think we should shoot it right now.
And then we'll do a sort of every 10 years where these characters are. And I've got a great.
It's just like before
exactly.
Sunset
I'm ripping that off 100%.
In the morning.
Yeah, before sunrise, sunset, and after.
So it's. Can you maybe clarify for me? It's before sunset. Before sunrise.
No, I think it's actually before sunset. Shit. Before sunset.
See, I can never
after
tell.
Sunrise.
So tell me about people are like,
Something
so tell
about
me about Older,
midnight. Something about midnight.
Yeah, well, you look it up. People are like, people always say to me like, "Well, tell me about Older," and I'm like, "Well, okay. I want you to picture something, and I usually tell them about the inspiration, and I say, well, before sunset, but then I'm always like, before sunset or after sunrise or around midnight or whatever the fuck it's called. You know that movie?
Yes.
Starring
so
that
it's
that poor man's version of Obi-Wan Kenobi.
all right. I've got to pause. I've got to take a whiz. 1 second.
Right. Cool. Well, that was abrupt. He must have been really busting because, we were about to end the show. But that's fine. That's fine. I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to go on one of my rants, which we can just cut out later. Before sunset, before sunrise, and around midnight. It's really hard to choose. I don't want to choose a rant and tell you and read the rant and get halfway through the rant and go, fuck, this is literally bullshit. What the fuck am I on about? Because I write these and then I don't. This is like my what's the word? Backup storage. There's a way better word than that of ideas, which I fish into and then write shit out. But anyway. All right, fuck it. We'll just read it. I have no idea where it's going. Here we go. It's titled End of the World. It goes like this. The world is ending, as it has many times before, but this one is different because it's localized. It's not localized, actually. It's global. It's irreversible. So the world's ending. As it has many times. Ask the Mayans, but this time it's fucking different, all right? Now, when you look at history, you see these patterns of behavior repeating themselves. Now, we've seen empires fall many times, right? And when we look at those events, we see recurring themes such as the stratification of society between the elites and the masses, alongside the overexploitation of our resources in order to feed the insatiable appetites of the elites. So when you look at current affairs through that lens, you see that we are just doing what we've always done. Empires falling is what we've always done. The difference is that this time the stakes are higher than they've ever been before, because this is much bigger than the fall of the Roman Empire if our civilization falls, right? So the worst bit is that it's completely uncontrollable because there's nobody at the helm. There's nobody at the helm at the moment. The world's falling apart. There's nobody at the helm. We've got money versus politics versus religion versus the weather. And my money is on the weather taking this one out, all right? But not before us humans kill everything and everyone around us. So, yes, hi, Guy.
Thank you, Joe Rogan. I'm glad you popped in.
Well, before you pop in with your smarmy comments, or you fucking leave me hanging while you're taking a piss, completely no warning. We're about to say goodbye anyway. You could have waited 3 seconds.
It was.
But obviously, you were literally about to piss.
My pants were. It was going to leak out. There was no.
Your gumboots were already full, and you were like, "It's going to get on the carpet."
It's full to the brim. I have drunken 3 beers, so that's that. I blame that. So.
Okay, so what you interrupted, though, was that I said to the live stream listeners, I said, I'm going to pick one of my rants that I haven't read, and I'm just going to read it and see what happens. Yeah, okay. So, and I have no idea if the rant's good or bad. I don't know where it's going to go, but we might as well finish it. We're halfway through.
Oh, wait. You've got more?
Well, yeah, you interrupted me. You came back and interrupted me.
Okay, can continue.
Well, this is really, I'm going to cut all of this for the actual podcast, probably. Well, I don't know. Shout out to the podcast listeners. We have the power to take back the planet. I think that with our talent and ability to innovate, we can fix our system. The problem is that there are people protecting the status quo, people who have vested interests in the end of the world, religious zealots in the White House, for example, and unscrupulous, greedy corporates and so on. So the issue is that even though we're all sitting here watching the house catch fire, we can't do anything about it because they have the money and they have the power and they're insulated from the effects of climate change and so on, and so they're insulated from the effects of their greed. And so they don't suffer from the street crime like we do because they live cordoned off behind high walls. And, if they don't like the weather, that's fine. They move somewhere where the weather's still good, and they'll be the final climate refugees. They'll be the last people. They'll be their first type thing. They'll move to the good places. They'll be the first climate refugees, I guess. Anyway, they'll be the last ones because it will reach them last. And so the only way to save the world, in my opinion, is to rise up, seize the means of production, and then literally eat the elite and their minions, then implement a new system and hope late. And that's the only way we can save the world. The only other option, there's one other option. We've got the rise up and eat the rich option, okay? The other option, obviously after we eat them, we redistribute the wealth. The other option is to somehow convince the elite that they need to save the world, which will then have the inadvertent effect of saving us unwashed masses as well. That's my rant.
Thanks for sharing, bro. Yeah, that's how socialist of you.
I'm a fucking full-blown red commie nowadays.
So to all of that, right? To all of that rant, and we've talked about this before on the podcast, I highly encourage people to read a book. It's a science fiction book called The Dispossessed. And it's kind of about socialism and communism and how in that society, a set of sort of governance and rules comes out around that thing. So the very thing that is created is actually then sort of negated by the rules that you have to set in place for it to not be total anarchy. And so it's not like advocating or not advocating socialism, but it's talking about the flaws in a science fiction context and the way that these things might actually play out if you had a completely socialist government or planet in this case.
And what's it called?
The Dispossessed.
The Dispossessed.
By,
Do you know who wrote it?
Ursula K. Le Guin, who's a very famous science fiction author. Which
I don't read female authors. Sorry.
She also did.
I'm fighting against the matriarchy.
She also did the Wizard of Earthsea novels, which are probably her most famous. And in fact, I think we covered her on a Who's Dead this week, maybe a couple of years ago. Could be wrong about that, but she was great. Yeah. We did talk about this book before, but I highly recommend it because I was like, man, this is really interesting because it's like we're talking about this concept of essentially what you're talking about right now, and then we're exploring the idea of what happens when that happens. And then the sort of the reaction to it to create a society that still runs, and how sort of corruption in the same thing that you're rallying against, that corruption will seep into those socialist concepts as well. So it's really fascinating.
It could happen, but I think there's a good argument to be made for the fact that our social structures are always advancing incrementally over the course of years, and we make mistakes and then we learn from them and recorrect and so on. So I'm kind of hoping that the next version of socialism, or maybe communism, might end up being minus the dictator, and it's a democratic version of it. So it's not like the government comes in and goes, all right, guy, you're good at driving cars, therefore you're a taxi driver from now on, and that's your job. You've still got independence, you've still got capitalist elements, and you've still got an interest in being an entrepreneur and doing all of those types of things, but the basics are covered for people. So what that means is the bare minimum bottom line is covered for everybody. So if you get divorced and lose your job and all that stuff, you don't end up homeless. You end up in a home that is not as cool as the one you used to have, but you're still safe and warm. And so that's basically what I want.
Yeah. Red Face Pictures says this is how the Unabomber started. And you have been reading the Unabomber Manifesto.
Yeah, I'm 2/3 of the way through it. He's not a communist though. He's an eco-anarchist or something to that effect. So he's a full-on anarchist. I'm not an anarchist. I think that the way we can fix the world is like everything we're doing. You look at history. It starts off with small individual groups rolling around, and then we get into big groups and we organize things, and then we get into slightly bigger groups and organize those things. Then we get into bigger groups and bigger groups and bigger groups, and slowly what happens is we organize things in such a way that as a whole we're stronger than the smaller individuals. And so the next obvious logical thing to do with our civilization is to organize a world government which then sends out the resources to everybody who needs them, and everything's covered, everything people need is covered, right? And then after that, okay, we go, cool, so we've conquered poverty and all those things, and there'll always be issues, there'll always be something we've got to sort, but we conquer poverty and those types of things, and we'll go, well shit, what's fucking next? We can't keep on, there's no point in killing each other, we're all under the same government. Oh, I've got a fucking idea. Let's kill the fucking aliens. And that's what we'll do. We will reap a bloody harvest, a galaxy, culling life with bullet and blade and plague. Okay? We will take what we want from the universe, but first we need to stop being fuckheads and fighting amongst ourselves, and the way to do that is a worldwide government gives everybody what they need, and then we can go look to space. We're coming for you, motherfuckers. You better hide your fucking Xenos ass.
I'm so glad that I had
killing it. I'm looking forward to killing aliens.
So glad I had that toilet break. Really got down a path here. If we could just course correct for a brief moment.
What do you mean course correct? This is literally the best parts of the show. This is what Jason Coombs wanted from the acid episode. He wanted me to go on these types of rants on the acid episode.
So
yeah, Jason P. Diddy Combs listening in Savannah.
Back to one of my favorite directors, Richard Linklater, who directed.
Oh, good. We're going back to movies. Who
directed the Before trilogy, which we talked about, which is Before Sunrise, Before Sunset, and Before Midnight.
Okay, Before is easy to remember.
So Sunrise, Sunset, Midnight. And it was filmed, the first one in 95 when they're young, second one 2004 when they're sort of about in their early 30s, and Midnight sort of early 40s, family shit.
The female actress in that, whose name I don't recall, was very lucky that other guy, whose name
Ethan
I also
Hawke,
don't recall,
and I think it's Julia Delpy.
Yeah. So lucky that his career blew up so big that particularly for the last movie, when she came back to
Julie
do
Delpy,
that movie with him, by that stage he was a really big established celebrity type thing, and he wanted to continue doing that series, which is cool. And she's lucky that this role that she landed, when she was 20 or whatever, has led on to these other movies, with this great successful dude. I'm sure she's done all sorts of stuff as well, but she's obviously not as famous as him.
I'm so sure you'll have that feeling when we do Older 2 in 3 years.
Who's the big star, you or me?
It's just, I guess, the measure of success that the film has garnered from that first one. And now
I thought you were saying that I'd be like, man, I'm so glad I acted in that movie across from Guy, because now I'm getting called back for my role, and Guy is a huge big star.
It's more like
now.
I'm so glad I was in that film that I somewhat disliked, because now it's blown up and now I'm in the next part of it and it's got this worldwide following.
I don't dislike Older though. I like Older. I think Older's great. I think that I'm really looking forward to releasing it. I just want to hurry up and release it. Now Tyler Adams on the live stream says that she's big in France,
she is
that actress,
originally French.
That does make sense.
And he also asks, is Older going to be on Amazon? I think Amazon Prime is the main place it's going to be. And then he says, what's the difference between PVOD and free on Prime? Well, probably it will be in I'm not sure, because I don't know how the Prime subscription model works exactly in the US.
What do you mean Prime? What does free
Amazon
on Prime mean?
Amazon Prime, which is like the sort of the like.
So you've got paid video on
Yep.
demand on
Yep.
Amazon, and then
Free
you've
on
got
Prime.
Amazon Prime, which is a
Yeah.
subscription service.
Yes.
Both of those are paid. PVOD, I assume, means paid
Yes.
video on
So
demand.
that would be paid per time someone watches it. Yeah.
Pay-per-view.
And then free is like
free
you just
on
have a subscription
Prime.
and you just click on it and you go there. It's older.
Got it.
What will probably happen is
It'll be the latter.
well, no. What will probably happen is it will start off as the former. So it'll start off as something that you rent or buy on Prime, and then 6 months or a year down the road, or whenever our distributor decides, they will then put it as a subscription. In the subscription model, which is just part of your subscription to Prime. I imagine that's how it works. It'll be a sort of a tiered thing. We start off with you pay, and then it's like you watch it with ads, and then it's like you watch it with a subscription.
It starts with the most profitable and then works its way down. So paid, you're paying $10 just to watch it once. And then once they wring all the money out of that, then they go down to the next one. Well, let's put it on with advertising. With
ads
another version of it, and then eventually you get down to like basically free on the internet but with ads. So that's where you're working from between AVOD, advertising video on demand, and it's just free, and like PVOD,
or
which is you pay specifically $10 just for it.
Well, I think it's so that's where we're gonna. But also Amazon Prime is probably the place that it's going to be seen the most, in the sense that our distributor or our sales agent has an established relationship with Amazon and is a distributor to Amazon. So I imagine that that's where it will be sort of most widely available for sort of people around the world, because I think they've got 120 territories that they sell through Amazon. So that's where ours will be.
The answer is it should be available. It should be definitely available on all of those places. Well, that's not quite his question, but it should be available on all those places when the time comes.
And Older 2 will also, we'll go into pre-production on Older 2 is commencing now. I've actually got I
think the script writing needs to start.
I've got a great idea. Like I've got a great whole concept of how Older 2 works, and
is it going to take 8 years?
I hope it's not going to take. We've just got to delete the editing equation. Is really where we're getting a little bit bogged down.
Well, we will, and here's what we're going to do next time. We're going to find the money to have a proper post-production that just happens quickly and efficiently, as possibly can. We possibly can. We're going to find the money. That's the answer.
Absolutely. But I do have a great story arc / character arc for your character in that one.
All right. Tell me about it.
You want us to talk about it now?
Absolutely. I mean, you can't say that you've got a cool story character arc for my character on the live podcast.
Sure. So
we're hanging out.
So I mean,
here.
No one's seen Older, but in Older, your character, your character is in a relationship, a sort of not a new relationship, but you've just gotten married, and things aren't.
Yeah. And you see that in the trailer. That my character's just gotten married.
Through that marriage and through that starting of a family, that has distanced your relationship with my character, because my character is not doing any of those things. So he can't relate, and he's not engaged with you anymore. It's like you've got this whole new life now, and none of it is fun or cool for someone who doesn't have a family and doesn't have a kid and all that sort of thing. And it's not perfect. Your relationship is not perfect. But that's where you are in that film. And my idea for the second one is sort of exploring what we're about to all go through in sort of 10 years later, which is all of those people, not all of those people, but a lot of those people in those relationships that started 10 years ago are now just ending. And it's sort of about that idea.
The second wave of
exactly. We've talked about it on the podcast. So it's that idea that, okay, now your relationship is breaking up, and it's breaking up for good. And it's like, okay, well, now I'm a 40-year-old dude and I'm single. What does that look like? What does that feel like? I've got a family, but I don't have a family. You know, I've got this part of my life. I want parts of it.
I like it. I like it. So it
I
follows
want
me.
parts of it, but I don't want parts of it. Well, it's kind of like a juxtaposition between
Yeah.
your relationship and my relationship, and sort of, and I'm at a crossroads myself with my relationship, and sort of, do I go down the path that you're now experiencing, or do I take steps to,
Stop that from happening.
exactly.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of the concept for older too, more older.
Yeah. more older. All right. Well, look, we better wrap it up because this show is getting on.
It's getting a bit long in the tooth.
It has. Yeah, it is. And so thank you very much for listening. Facebook.com/Guy and Harley for updates. Olderfilm.com if you would like to see updates about Older and where we're going with that. And also you can find Older. You can find all our projects on Facebook. Older the movie, I Survived a Zombie Holocaust, Pigville Productions, the Guy and Harley podcast. It's all there. You can find it all. And so this is a filmmaking podcast.
It's a podcast about our lives.
So let's stop to take a wee second to say to any of our listeners out there who are struggling with any internal issues in this unprecedented lockdown, that to keep your head up and keep going, and that's all I can figure out to do. So just keep going and know that the clouds always clear eventually, and usually they're followed by rainbows and growth. And if you're ever in doubt, just know that along the way, we will be here for you. Guy and Harley, ever vigilant, broadcasting these messages of hope, even when the recipients are just the wretched inhabitants of the ruins of our civilization, subsisting on rust. Shout out to the wretched denizens subsisting on the rust of our civilization. My name's Harley Neville. Thank you for listening.
I'm Guy Pigden, and just a quick follow-up to that. When can we see Older? Well, we don't know quite yet is the answer, because we don't know when the US are going to want to put it out on their streaming platforms, and we can't make a plan of when we're going to release it over here until we know that. So that's just a little follow-up answer to question posed in the chat. But be assured that as you're feeding on your rust meals,
you wretched denizens,
that we will advise you of where it can be available, and it hopefully won't be the too distant future over here. So you keep tuned for that, you rust eaters.
Thank you very much. Good night.